comes through.
Just give me a thumbs up there.
Mike, just turn it over. I know who I am.
All right, we're going to call the October 12th meeting of the CIP committee to order at 6:31 p.m. If we could get a roll call, please.
So we have in attendance Mark Haynes, Charlie St. Clair,
Carolyn Muller.
Carolyn,
Mike Little?
Mike Little, Jane LaRoche,
Rob Mora.
Tyler Carmichael, Mike Foote,
Here.
Steve Bogart,
Bogart.
Kathy Manisi, and myself.
Correct. All right. So Scott, you already went over you and Kathy being here. Scott is our zoning technician and Kathy is our planning director. The minutes will be distributed after tonight's meeting, so perhaps we could continue those until our next week's meeting for review. I could just get a motion for that.
Motion to delay until next meeting.
And I got a second? All right, all in favor, raise your hands.
Hey,
Everybody voted in the affirmative, so those will get pushed to next week's meeting. All right, so department presentations. First on our agenda is Amy from Parks.
All right. Well, thank you all. I appreciate you coming out on this lovely evening. I think the only one I don't know is Jane. Is that what you? Sorry, Amy Lovisic, Laconia Parks and Rec. Everybody else I know.
I was here last year and the year before.
Oh my goodness. Well, I get nervous when I'm up here, so ignore me.
Me too.
Can you see my presentation?
No.
No, but we could see you.
God, no. I don't want that.
Here we go.
Now we can.
that's a swinging presentation.
Yeah. How do I see my section? It doesn't really matter. It's all right. Don't worry about it. All right.
Look at that.
Fancy
Cover.
schmancy. I know. Listen, nothing but the best for you guys. So again, thank you for allowing me to speak. This is the 24 to 29 CIP presentation for the Parks Department. We have 16 requests tonight, all for this year. I will give you at the end my top 4, just to make your life a little easier. And sadly, they are not the top 4. So we're just going to jump right in. In the past, I've done a little song and dance for you, and I'm not going to do that this year. You're welcome. I feel as though your time is precious, and I don't want to waste it. So I'm not going to give you any fluff. I'm not singing. Rob.
Darn it.
I know. There might be a little pizzazz, though. I'm just saying. So the first thing that is on the list is the complete key renovations. We have keys, as you can see here, a very high-tech way of keeping these things. They are behind 2 locked doors, but still not super high-tech. And once we give out a key, it's out there, and people, even though it says do not duplicate, they do anyway, unfortunately, or they just don't return it. And now they've got access to our building until I realize and change the lock. So I would like to start fresh, complete key renovations throughout the entire park system, and be able to monitor a little easier. After speaking with A&B Locksmith, they have a key system that does not allow anyone to rekey anything without me doing it through them, which is what I'm looking for. So that is important for our department. Commercial turf care equipment, you did fund this for us last year. But as you can see, we have a lot of equipment, and that's just a corner. We have a significant amount of equipment that is aging out. With the amount of parks that we have and the amount of acreage that we mow, it's important that we change up our equipment periodically, and we haven't been very good with that, which is why we're trying to make up time now. Another one is a 2x4 Ford F-150 pickup truck, and this truck is not replacing another truck. It is in addition to trucks that we already have, because we are in need of a truck since we have 2 new employees that we have been granted through the budget. We need to get them vehicles in order to get them to jobs. I know, it gets a little fancy. Another big one is the Levitt, Wyatt, and Tardif Park basketball court resurfacing. In addition to the resurfacing, we need basketball uprights, backboards, hoops, the whole 9 yards at Tardif Park. And it is all included in that $62,000. The picture you're seeing right there is Tardif Park. Now we're actually having to mow our courts. It's not a good look. And it's a safety concern for anybody playing basketball, and it's an aesthetic black eye. But here's a picture of our basketball court currently at Tardif Park. Anyone want to play? No? Weird.
I can't jump.
I'm not making any comment to that. New this year is tree pruning at the parks, and we're breaking this up into phases. We are looking to, because our department is getting bigger, but our park trees are growing older as well. They need to stay healthy. In order to do that, we need to prune them. We don't have the staff to set aside weeks and weeks at a time each year to just prune, and we don't have the equipment. So not only would we have to rent the equipment, we'd also have to set aside 2 people for probably 6 weeks each year to just do the pruning. And I think it's more fiscally responsible for us to put it out to bid. So this is one of 4 years for the phases. And this tree alone at O-Pee-Chee, it's an old picture, please understand. This tree is already gone. However, it's an example of why we need tree pruning. We do need to do a sewer line replacement at Tardif Park for the park house itself. We found out early in the spring that we have a faulty line. It's not broken, it's just breaking. And we need to get ahead of it and fix that line going all the way to the main line in the middle of the street. So that's for that. Security cameras would be great to have. We've been having vandalism. We've been having the threat of vandalism. We've been having thefts, just different things like that. And we have people call us, not frequently, but regularly. I left this in the park. Did you see who took it? I know you have a camera. Oh, I don't have a camera there. You know, or I do have a camera. I'll tell you who took it. You know, I found it. Just all different types of calls for security. When Little League was vandalized a couple years back, they said, "Oh, don't worry, the parks have cameras. They'll tell you who did it." But we don't have cameras. You know, we don't have any cameras at O-Pee-Chee Park, which is, it's in this day and age, surprising. So this is for 11 parks and the community center. So outdoor pickleball courts, because I have to. Pickleball is growing exponentially, as we all know. And this picture was actually sent to me by one of my pickleball players with the caption of, "Look, all 5 courts are being used." This is Memorial Park that was resurfaced this summer with 5 tennis courts and 5 pickleball courts. It's the largest growing sport there is in America right now, and I think maybe worldwide. I'm not positive on that one, but they are looking for something specifically for them. We would be looking for this basically on this side or on the left side of this closest player into Memorial Park to put them, because it's basically the furthest that can get away from neighbors, to hopefully not have the sound issues that pickleball tends to have. It's not covered though. That I could not get a quote for anything covered, just so you're aware. This is for a design phase for a new community center. Some of you are aware, some of you are not. We've been thinking, sometimes out loud, sometimes in our heads, about a new community center, and this is our first step towards that. We have basically outgrown our current community center. We have a lot of storage space. We have a basketball court that's not a regulation size basketball court, so our high school team can't use it. We have 2 pickleball courts in there. We have a racquetball court that doesn't get used. And we have offices, and we have a meeting room. It's not what the city of Laconia needs anymore. We have outgrown. We need more. We need more pickleball courts, indoor pickleball courts. It's coming. They're desperately in need of time and space for pickleball. I'd love to see all different types of things at this community center, for kids, adults, seniors, the whole gamut. But it's a design phase, figuring out where, figuring out what we want. That type of a thing is what we would look for this design. Yes, come on.
Sorry, just want to jump in. The HVAC.
Come close to this.
Sorry. The HVAC for the community center currently is shoddy at best, and we've been band-aiding it and trying to every year it's kind of like we're band-aiding it for the year and seeing what happens for the next year. We got a quote for a new HVAC system back in 2017, and that number was astronomical then, right? So that's before everything went up in price. So instead of coming here with a multi-million-dollar request for an HVAC system for the community center, we're saying we are growing out of this building. What is the logical next step? Sorry.
No, perfect.
So just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
you want to go?
Go ahead.
So does that take that off the?
That's if you don't want
Potentially.
this.
Okay, so if we do this, then that goes away and.
Well, that's for next year. That's why that's on for next year.
Okay.
If you guys don't like the idea of a new community center, by the way, I won't stop. But
Is it at the same spot?
no,
You probably need to look at, 10 to 15 acres of land to put that on, so you can have,
I have some ideas.
Scary.
It's exciting.
22
What?
acres.
Yes.
Pardon?
22 acres?
What?
That'd be about the proper size, 22
I
acres.
think it'd be good to have some land for playing fields and whatnot.
Yeah.
What do you do with the old one?
Well, that's a good question. I know that the school department is looking for a place to have an alt program. It could be an easily accessible addition to the high school. Or we sell it for $1 and get what we can.
I hope not.
I like the fact that it's a historical building that
City-
has
city sells
some importance to it.
Stupid.
Would
So, yes.
would we be able to host events there if we wanted to
Yeah.
do fairs and stuff?
Honestly, I'm hoping to do all kinds of different things that we're not able to do now.
Yeah.
Host meetings, have art classes and dance classes and music classes and just different things, along with exercise classes and just,
A multi-use.
absolutely.
Do you think there'd be like an auditorium in there as well, kind of thing? Is that
We
what you-
need another auditorium.
No.
All right, just curious.
Well, I was kind of just curious if you're going to do like dances in there, like dance recitals or something like that. If a dance studio from the community wanted to, I know there's a few places downtown that are rather expensive to rent out for these small businesses. That I didn't know if there's perhaps a,
It's that expensive to get the Colonial Theater?
yeah.
So they'd rather be it closed and dark instead of having our little ones?
Well, I think,
I find that quite interesting.
Steve, you gotta speak up so we can all hear you.
I said, I think it's quite interesting that they would outprice a dance recital for the little ones just to keep it turned off. That surprises me. I mean, a dark Colonial Theater doesn't look very appetizing to me.
No, I know that it's more cost effective for some of these places to go up to Meredith to rent out the school up there to use their auditorium than it is to stay here in Laconia.
Good to know. Again, it's open for ideas. So that would just be the design phase. A couple years back, we did the downtown tree replacement, phase 1. The main street all the way up has new trees. The other areas that we were going to cover over were covered over. And at this point, we are just replacing trees that are outgrown, in disrepair, or just disease covered, or just in poor shape. So that's just to replace the additional trees, as I had said before that I would do. The Bond Beach Road reclaim and paving the parking lot. So the plan would be, the right-hand picture is the floor plan of the new bathhouse that's going in this spring. And then paving the actual parking lot, so it's just an area that's easily, we can move the water easily, and it doesn't go down. But the driveway itself, I really don't want to repave it. I like the bumps, and I like the bumps because it keeps people going slowly. If you pave that road, people are going to zoom down or zoom up, and we're going to have issues because there's kids walking, there's people riding their bikes, and there's people coming the opposite way. So I don't want to make this road smooth and fantastic. To reclaim it just means we grind up the current pavement and leave it there, and now it's a dirt road, basically, sort of. And we'll get its ruts, and we'll have to deal with the ruts, but I might leave the ruts. It's just a safety thing. It's not, I know a lot of people don't like the road, and which is why I'm looking to change it. And it does look bad, and it does need to be changed, because we don't want it looking bad. So this is my option of doing that, and fixing the look of that area.
Are we asking questions as we go down?
Yes, sir.
Because I missed a
Oh,
couple
okay.
spots. I didn't know that.
Well, there's time at the end also, that's
On
fine.
this road, so you want to reclaim it but not pave it? So it'd just be kind of like semi-dirt or dirt?
Correct, yep.
Do bicyclists use that road now?
Not a lot,
Is it the only place for them to use?
yep.
I'm riding on that stuff on a bicycle. Just saying. That's just a comment. And then if I can jump back, Mr. Chair, to the first one. Thank you. On the keys.
Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned A and B. Is that something that's going out to bid or?
It would have to, yes.
Okay.
They're the ones that gave me a quote to start with and gave me the ideas. That's why I mentioned them, but anything over 5,000 has to go out to bid.
Okay.
Would a card system work better?
It would, but that's a lot more money.
Well,
And,
if you're gonna make that kind of investment,
and I need internet at every single facility.
okay,
Yeah, that would
I'm not,
tough.
That's more,
keys are almost an impossible to, I mean, you can try your best, but somebody's gonna have a key. So, okay.
If I can follow up with that, because I was gonna ask basically the same question, but I was gonna expand that question just a hair with the card system. If we utilize the card system across the city itself, not just necessarily with the parks, where you can program someone and then you can deprogram their key like a hotel or something, then once their time is up, they're up and they can't use the key no more. And we don't lose the key. And the same within, and it tells us who and what and when and where someone entered a building. And the same with City Hall and the other DPWs and stuff like that. They can also utilize the same system, software and stuff like that, and have the keys.
Exactly.
Yeah, we use
Like-
something similar at the National Guard. I mean, it's all
Well, everybody else uses them.
central and yeah.
Car dealerships use those.
Yeah, and it works great. I mean, even at the state capitol, I'm given a little access key to get into the capitol. It makes it nice. Now, every time I use it, they know I used it, and that's the great thing about it, 'cause now you know who's coming in these buildings and who's going out. And at the parks, at remote areas and stuff, I used the park last night. I dropped the key and it took me 20 minutes to find the key again. Versus you could just deprogram the card and off we go to the races again. So I like that idea myself.
So I also work for the National Guard, and we have a key system, and everything's programmed. So certain buildings open up at certain times and on certain schedules. So you don't even have to send staff out there to unlock a building. The building will automatically unlock at, say, 7 o'clock in the morning. And then if a staff member needs to get in after it's already locked back up, you just have the key card and you buzz them in. And if you have a staff member that abruptly leaves, all you gotta do is go in and turn it off.
I will say, we do use a mixture system. Like, there are some rooms that are key only just because they are safety critical places that we do not want just anybody who has access to a facility to have access to that room. So in those situations, we could have certain personnel, supervisors or somebody that has that one key, but that's much easier to keep track of.
But that's the level of your clearance on your card. I mean, 'cause not necessarily does every card have to unlock every door, but it can be programmed in to the level of
Sure.
entry you get.
So you guys are tooting the horn of the cards. I would love to have a card, but will you give me $300,000 to do a card system, or will you give me $20,000 to read key?
Well,
At
it
the
all
moment.
in question is the basic question would be, can that be a shared expense across the whole city? Not just the Parks Department eating it, but the whole city, because the whole city can use the same software. It's not a Parks and Rec software package, it is just software, and it can be set up to use across the whole city. So can we spread that cost across the city?
It's definitely something I can look into.
But I'm just curious, when the internet goes down, which it does do, what do you have for a backup
You
then?
always have a key for the backup, and then you're not giving out 40 keys.
Wait a second. You always have a key for the backup. But if I go up to Weir's Beach, because I'm doing a fireworks show or something, and I have a card to get in onto the beach or into the bathhouse where I have to get to the lights, and that's not working because of an internet problem, then what do? That's time sensitive. I can't call her up and hope she's around town to come and fix the problem. And that's
Well,
just something to think about, Stephen.
yeah,
We're not gonna
it is.
decide it tonight.
It is.
It's not quite the 1-2.
Well, that's where the multi-system comes into play, because those safety critical positions or rooms, boilers, HVAC, stuff that we might need immediate access to, that the system might be down, it's still hard keyed, and supervisors would be on call to respond to that
We
in
have
an
no
emergency.
supervisors
but-
in Parks and Rec.
And I was gonna
I'm not
say-
on
One
call
person.
at all times, I'm
And I was
just
gonna
saying.
say too, you're looking at another full-time position too to manage the system, so that is something to consider. You're looking
And-
at
and
somebody to
adding
manage
internet.
the system.
to those
Internet at every
facilities.
It's
single
set up.
facility
Yeah.
that I own.
It's set up.
And if you had a
And then
card
it's just
system,
maintenance of the system.
wouldn't there be a battery backup on the system in case
The
of
IT
failure
department
for the
should be
power
able to do
company?
that, 'cause like with the
I don't know, it's a
capital
question
and
that
stuff
maybe
like
you
that,
can
that's
ask if
all
you're gonna
IT.
do more
And
research.
once they get it
And the other
set
question
up,
is, do you
they just
need the
here's your
internet
card, here's
for
your
the
card, here's your
programming?
card,
Or is it
what's your
always
name,
on?
here's
Have to
your
always
card.
have it.
And we all got different levels of
They told me it was
access to stuff.
price prohibitive, basically.
And you can literally give a master key to the police department, because if we can't trust our police department, then who can
I'm
we
not coming
trust?
up to open my beach up there for a fireworks show. Come on. Mark's right, though. We've beaten this horse to death. We need to move on.
Yep.
Any other questions on Bond Beach? Paving the track parking lot at O-Pee-Chee Park, with adding a catch basin at the bottom, as you can see there. It tends to pool up. We could have an ice skating rink there in the winter if we wanted.
Brought this up last year.
Yes, I did. I didn't get the money though, so I bring it up every year.
Good on you.
My commission is asking to have this green monster torn down. It is not, it's lovely from this vantage point. It's not lovely from the backside. It was not built to just be a wall. That it's not structurally built just to be a wall. It was built so that it had a deck on top of it, so that they could have beer sales for the muskrats. However, no one actually built it. It never got completed, and now the muskrats are gone. So we would like to take it down and put up a fence, specifically because of the backside. I encourage you to go up and take a look if you'd like. But it's not the prettiest, and it's not structurally fantastic either.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
is it a common practice that anybody can put anything up and just abandon it?
It was in the commission's requirements that these people do it, and they just didn't.
Oh, okay.
This may sound
Another
silly.
enforcement issue. All right.
Is that, don't laugh at me, is that a backboard in any way for balls that are being sent
No.
in that direction?
No,
Is it too low?
Yes, that's the reason it's so high.
Yep.
When we replace it with a fence, it's going to have to be just as high,
Gotcha.
because that section is in closer. I don't know if y'all remember, but when this field was built, it was built short. Our high school team didn't want to play on this field because it was basically a middle school sized field. It was home run derby left and right. So when the muskrats came, they wanted to expand it, which we did, except for in that corner, because that light pole that you see there, the really tall one, is right there at the end of the fence. And so that side is closer to us than that McDonald's sign. It's very strange. So we would have to go up, so it's harder to get a home run, basically. It was a good question. I didn't laugh at all.
Thank you.
Weirs Beach irrigation upgrades and the building replacement. It's not the building you're thinking of. So Weirs Beach does have an irrigation system. It is very dated and needs just a quick update. In that update, we'd like to add a foot washing station outside of the bathhouse, so that they're not using our sinks. I know, rocket science.
You mean to get the sand off their feet?
Correct.
Yes, thanks.
That's where they put, yeah.
All right.
Because we don't have one right now, they wash their feet in the sink. The users of all ages, and it's very interesting. And it causes issues, obviously, sand in the sink is a problem. So we'd like to add that in our irrigation system. It's not something drinkable, potable water, it's not. So we would like to add that. And the building in question is the irrigation building. On the left-hand side, you'll see it, very storybook. It's kind of hidden behind on the right-hand side as you're coming down the driveway. But as you can see on the right, the stucco. I don't know why we have stucco in the first place, but the stucco's all coming off. And the building is basically crumbling and going to fall soon. What we're looking for with the $10,000 is the irrigation upgrades, as well as having the Hewitt Tech build us a replacement for this teeny tiny little building. Gives them an opportunity to build what we need, and they do it for the cost of the materials, which is great. So it keeps our costs low.
Mr. Chair, is that something that we as Action Committee could be approached about?
Good.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just so you're aware, they're putting in $5,000 to put electricity over to the gazebo. Did you know that?
Yes, but they came across this past year considerable amount of money.
Oh, lovely. Feel free.
Well, they do have other projects in mind.
I understand.
We're also looking for the Bartlett Beach bathhouse. We'd like to replace that, and this would be the design phase for that. On the ladies' room side, which is the opposite side of the picture that you're seeing there, is this door here. They are constantly breaking the locks and the locking mechanism to try and get access to that building because it's out of the way. The police can't see you on the opposite side of the building.
Cameras. Just say it.
It does have cameras, but it was bought by the WOW Trail, these cameras specifically, the WOW Trail and a private donor for the right-hand side, and they want the trail to be seen, but we'd like this area to be seen. So it's interesting, the games we have to play. But what I'd like to see is something like we're doing at Bond Beach, where the entrance is right where you can see, and you split off and go into the bathrooms. Lastly, I'm gonna have Matt come up.
Hi. Yeah, we just want to get a Sprinter van to travel around, right? So for the first thing I'm thinking is our Christmas carolers. We meet in one location, then we all caravan out, right? And then we find some place we walk around. I want to be able to just jump in the van and go, right? Once we have this van, I think that opens up a lot of opportunities. I have this hope of doing a bird watching club, right? Because we have all the lakes. So we get together, we meet in one location, we get in the van, then we go to the separate location instead of caravanning out with all these people. Trips to Celtics games, Bruins games, we see other places do that. Having the ability to all go together. Hiking clubs, going out to the Belknap mountain ranges out there. These are all programs that become available to us once we can travel together.
What's the capacity?
This one I think is 15, so pretty sizable, right? And then I have hope, right? One of the number one things I hear from people when their kids graduate out of our O-Pee-Chee Day Camp program is what can my kid do? He's too old for camp, too young to start working. And we've kind of tossed around this idea of I'm calling it like a Laconia Youth Corps right now, where in the morning we meet at the community center, we get in the van, we go out, we trim some brushes along the WOW Trail, or do a little project here, a little project there, and then in the afternoon go to one of the beaches or go to one of the parks to play around or do something along this. So we mix in like little work group with a little like a fun group to be a part of there. Being able to be mobile is crucial to that. But once we can do that, I think we can do a lot of really cool things where we start kids at O-Pee-Chee Day Camp, we keep them in Laconia Youth Corps, they graduate out of that, they just start working for us right away. We get them lifeguard certified, start working for us right away. And then they graduate high school and they come work for us full time, or go off to college and then come back and work for us full time. But having the ability for womb to tomb is what I've heard, right? Just keeping people in the city and in the programs, right? So those are many of the hopes for this, and we said, hey, let's throw it on and see what people think.
Do you need a, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Do you need a certain license to drive that?
I don't believe so.
Once you go to a certain
No.
size, you
That's
can
what I-
watch it.
Okay.
Yeah, you need a health card or, you know,
Like a
those
CDL.
kind of things, yeah.
And you envision this as a year-round thing?
The youth corps?
No, the van.
Yeah, but yeah, we could rent maybe for a season to start up certain areas. But yeah, I mean,
Wouldn't it make more
le-
sense to outsource something like that? I mean, if you plan trips, you can outsource it.
we would be doing it daily,
I guess my
right?
biggest concern is, as we keep adding equipment, we're adding to the internal service. At some point in time, as we continue to add all this equipment, we're gonna be talking about another mechanic. So, I mean, I
If we don't have the capacity for it, we don't have the capacity.
I
for it,
understand the need, but
I also, if we don't ask for it, then we don't have those
okay.
conversations.
I was just gonna say that maybe instead of the money for this van, you could pick up, it seems like that place down there on, in Belmont on Route 3 there. A lot of times they have the small buses, and I don't think you need a DOT card to drive those, because I think the capacity of that is less than that magic number, to do that. But I, it's a bus.
Yeah.
And maybe that would work too. Just a
Yep,
thought,
yeah.
just a thought.
For
I
sure.
don't think those are $60,000, but
Yeah, I'm not sure what
you know,
I used.
thought. I think it's a great concept, sure. But anyway, that was my 2 cents.
Thank you.
I just want to add, I think that's a great idea to have a youth programs like that where we're engaging. I think there's some age groups that we drastically need to pay more attention to, and thank you for thinking about programs like that. We need those. And I'm glad, and maybe that would be coupled great with a new community center.
I'll agree. So, anybody have any questions to start?
just one, if I may. I'm sorry, but this council would not vote for a 2x4 pickup truck. In this day and age, where there could be multi-used in the winter, a 4x4 is a better investment.
So I spoke with Danny Walker at DPW, and he suggested the 2x4, because it's not a plow truck. It was a suggestion by the DPW.
Okay, in case of an emergency with DPW and we needed another truck, a snow emergency, a 2x4 truck doesn't amount to anything.
We do have 4x4s.
I'm talking about a 4x4 in the fleet, another one.
So you want me to change that to a 4x4?
Well, I would.
Listen, I wouldn't mind, don't get me wrong, but I don't wanna overspend if it's not needed.
I know, but that's one of the,
That one?
that's one of those situations that, how do you know what an when you have an emergency, you have an emergency. You
Yep.
can't plan for an emergency.
Yep.
Anyways,
We do
okay.
have two
Just food for thought.
4x4 plow trucks. They are both rigged with the V plows. So for emergencies, we do have those two.
How much more money is it, Amy?
I don't know because I didn't
Crazy.
ask for it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
it
you-
does
if
jump
you-
up
Another
if you're
20,000.
For being able to swap plows split back and forth, you're probably adding another 25,000 on
20,000,
it between everything you're gonna need to make it a plow truck without having the plow.
I don't know how far out we're going, but you have another one of those for later on in the budget too, so would we
That's
change?
to replace in the fleet.
Yep, so would we change both in the plan?
I don't know.
Just one?
But if it's a 4x2 now, or 2x4, sorry, we can figure that out.
Over the past years, you've talked about rebuilding out here on the walkways because it seemed to be a part of a Parks and Rec.
Rebuilding out on the park,
The walkways
It's
out
done.
here.
it's done.
It's done.
You mean at Rotary Park?
Or just down outside of this building, around the back and down.
That was on,
Roots coming through.
that side, it's been done.
It's all done.
And this is just a question on value, I have no idea, because when I come down, I see a lot of extra people. Would there be any value to adding lighting along the walkway
I
up
agree with you.
along here?
and
Would
it's
that,
already
would
in
that
process.
help?
Yes,
It is?
it's already in process.
Let me phrase that carefully. We're gonna go out with an RFP to determine what the design cost and the construction cost would be. Then it's up to someone to find the money to make that. So,
Would there be lights involved? I mean, not just lights, would there be cameras? I know cameras are held back as a part of our good libertarian values
No,
for license plates.
It's money.
it's money, that's all, Mike.
It's gotta be done and.
It's only
if-
money.
If we try to accomplish these things, we have, if we looked at it, we have a big rhinoceros.
Yeah.
And the only way to eat that rhinoceros is little bits at a time. And so if we can find the money to have the lighting installed, and if it works out and we're blessed with it, then these lightings are gonna be the same as the lighting for the rest of the city downtown. So it closes in that whole circle of how the complex and everything should look. And if we get, I mean, these are big ifs, okay? Get that done along the walkway all the way down to the post office and back around through here, so the citizens themselves would be safe to walk at night.
All
if they wanted to.
citizens.
All citizens. And also, our police department would be in a safe environment, because currently, if the police had to walk over here to address something, they're walking in the dark.
Correct.
And we are also looking to encourage the city businesses to stay open a little bit later at night. And in order for them to do that, all the business owners park here in the street, in this parking lot. And as we all know, when we walk out, it's dark. And yes, we got street lights over there that are great for nothing on the street, but where all the people are, it's dark. And so we're hoping to bring a light to the situation.
My question exactly, thank you.
I have a question for you, Amy.
Sure.
Going back to your fleet, do you know what's in the inventory now, off the top of your head? What do you have? What vehicles?
Oh, my goodness. I want to say we have 2 dump trucks, 2 4x4s, and 2 2x4s.
Okay.
We also have an old city car for Matt, lucky guy. And I have a small SUV.
Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, are any of those already backup trucks for DPW for plowing?
We don't have, we've never done anything like that as backup, but
Okay. Just curious,
always-
thank you.
suppose an emergency is an emergency, right?
It's one of the problems I have.
That we're not backup?
Yeah, should be.
Have we ever come close to needing a backup? Just out
That
of
would be a
curiosity.
Wes question. I don't know the
to
answer.
answer that question. And the simplest thing I could say is, remember the storm a few years back when they said we're gonna get 12 inches in 33?
Yes.
Yeah.
I had 5 guys out with COVID.
Oh, good.
I remember
Same
that
time.
well.
So I had the trucks, but I didn't have the people.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that's probably more of the issue that we're gonna have.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
But based on that, would you say that maybe some of these heavier pieces of equipment should be looked at as that ability? I have to agree, sometimes on the heavier pieces, they need to be able to be cross-functional sometimes, so that if, and I know it's an if, but there's always gonna be that when it does, and it's gonna catch us shorthanded, like you said. Now, not necessarily does every truck, but maybe there's that portion we look at, because of these huge investments, that are cross-functional. Just a
As a-
humble opinion.
Hopefully this isn't a dumb question, first-time member, but does that cause any issues with crossover between DPW and parks as far as the funding and the CIP?
Shouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a major issue.
Okay, no worries, I just wasn't sure, thanks.
Does anybody else have any questions for Amy?
So just as a last part of this, I just wanted to give you my top four.
Is that a slide?
It's not a slide,
Okay.
sorry. My top four would be the keys at the top. The truck, which of course you have questions on both. Levitt Park, Wyatt Park, and Tardif Park basketball courts. And the Tardif Park sewer line replacement, repairs.
What was the last one?
The Tardif Park sewer line repair,
That's not 4.
sorry, that's number 4 that I would like.
Is that 4?
It's number 6, actually, on your list.
That's all I was saying.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Amy, thank you. Do you have some sort of backup on the key problem? You can say that last year we had 35 instances of people not returning keys or problems where people had kept keys and they broke into something. Do you have any type of backup for that, other than just saying it's a problem?
I can provide it for you. I do keep a key log. I just don't have it in front of me.
That shows the problems,
Shows the problems.
vandalism and.
We've had where we go to, I call it summarize, but it's to start up the season with the plumbing at, say, Weirs Beach. And someone has used every single toilet and and it didn't have water, mind you. There was
Just
no
filled it
water,
up.
just filled it up.
So they
And we
went in-
don't
they
know
went in
who
off-
did that.
They went in off-season.
Correct. We don't know who did that or how they got access.
I think that would be very helpful to your cause if you could show some sort of figures on that. And then, I'm kind of surprised that cameras aren't in your top 4, unless I missed it.
It would be, but I need the other things. Those would be great to have. Everything here would be great to have.
Yeah.
And it is needed, but it's not my top 4.
See, I would, myself personally, be leaning towards putting that as a priority.
I would be
because
okay with it.
Because again, no matter what you do with the locks, whether it's a card or a key, to stop the vandalism or the break-ins and stuff like that, I think the cameras are really, really good, and we have an extreme shortage of cameras in this city right across the board, whether it's on the Riverwalk, downtown, or these other isolated places. And we've seen that at the state school. So, I mean, I know I'm gonna push for that with a big
Great.
number, so, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I like that too. I just wonder, are we gonna run into the same problem with internet with security cameras? 'Cause I have to
I
get
can
back
do
to
cell
the.
service on those.
They just film and, yeah, and stuff.
I could do cellular.
Yeah.
That's how I do it at Bartlett Beach.
Amy, have you discussed doing a joint venture with the PD perhaps in cameras?
We use what they had asked us to use at Bartlett Beach. They are moving over to the Milestone software, so we went with that, if that's what you mean. And they have access to Bartlett Beach. It's the only place we have cameras right now. But they have that live streaming at their facility.
The community center isn't one of your top 4.
Nope, because I don't need it, right? I don't absolutely have to have it, right? It's not causing major problems. It will in the future. And at that point, I will say, I need to have this. But the other areas are basically, I can't live without. The other things, I can live without it, but I would prefer not to.
If I could just say, I think we need it.
Fine,
So do
I think.
great. Boost it right up there.
We're a community that,
Community center.
you know, we want to be a tourist community. We want people to come here, and we need to have something that shows we want people to come here and invest in us. And I think
Wonderful.
investing in our community and those youth programs and all these recreational activities are number 1 priority for us. If we want to truly be the city on the lakes and have community engagement, community center should be number 1.
Well, and multi-generational, not just the kids, but for.
Exactly. If we're going to do it from boom to tune, then,
Killing me with that.
you know, we really need to invest in ourselves, and I think that's an exceptionally good investment. And when we look at, oh, you need pickleball courts, we need this court, we need a field for this, where this baseball field isn't big enough. Maybe we need a parcel of land that supports doing that. I mean, you look over at the town of Guilford, they have a plethora of fields, and we just don't have that. So I think it should be number one.
We have more fields than Guilford, just so you know.
We have
A lot
population,
more
too.
fields. They're just not all in one area.
But it would be nice to have a true community center with true space to have youth programs.
I love it. Absolutely. Boost it right up there in your numbers.
That's why I asked.
No, thank you. I'm glad I could piggyback on that.
It's nice, honestly, it's nice to hear support for the Parks Department. We're not first responders. We're not, you know, you don't need and absolutely have to have this for life-saving equipment, right? So it's nice to hear how you guys care about the Parks Department as well, and I just want to say I appreciate that, so thank you.
26, and 27.
I have a final question
Right,
for
but
you,
that's-
real quick. Thinking about the camera situation, you said we have one facility that already has cameras, Bond Beach.
Bartlett Beach.
Bartlett Beach, okay. I'm assuming those were put in there because there was, at one point in time, a lot of theft, vandalism, and such.
Correct, and we got some money from it, from
Gotcha.
private.
And have we noticed a significant decrease? Is it still occurring?
It's still occurring.
So that's, I think, a point is, yes, you get a camera, but it doesn't take much to put a ski mask on. So I think I understand where you're coming from with the keys. You're still preventing people from using the facilities if you have new keys.
But wait a second here. You say it's still going on. Has there been any type of, is it because they're all wearing ski masks, we can't do anything? Or are they actually are they getting, are these cameras good enough so they're wide enough that you're not just zeroed in on a padlock? In other words.
I'm not zeroed in on a padlock. They are wide. They do the job that they're supposed to do, and
So
we
is it they
have been
fall
able
up?
to find things,
Things or
but-
people?
things,
But not people.
not people.
I think that probably requires a follow-up with the police department or something like that when you guys have them in here and ask them about that with cameras, because that's fine.
They have to have the detail to be able to identify who the
I'm well aware of that.
don't wanna make any assumptions.
I'm well aware of that. I'm just saying.
Can I get you to repeat one more time by ID number on the list?
Number
What your-
one,
Is number one.
number one. Number three, the truck is number two.
That's the number one.
No, that's number two.
That's number two, so number
So
number
three is two. Really gonna confuse you. Number four is three. And number 6 is 4. Did I really confuse you now?
And what's number 5?
Whatever you want. I'm hearing multiple things for community center. I'm hearing multiple things for security cameras. You pick. I'd love the community center. I'm not gonna lie to you.
So what number would that one be?
DPW garage.
It's number 9.
That
Nine
is
is where it's
9.
So would we say security camera and/or community center is
5,
toss
sure,
up, both of them being 5?
sure.
And that way, depending on which way we go, we have an opportunity. So number 7 and number 9
9.
would both be 5?
I made number 7 5.5.
Amy,
Yeah.
I'm pleasantly surprised to see that Peace did not make your list.
You're welcome.
Such a good job with the fireworks.
Well, not enough.
All right, well, thank you all. I appreciate all your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
Coming back.
Thank you.
I don't know how to get out of this. There we go. Do you have a PowerPoint as well?
Let me get in there.
There you go.
Good luck New Year's Eve. I noticed that on the minutes. And the other thing.
Absolutely.
Does it need to be on there?
Needs to be an addendum that,
Because somebody could.
professional fireworks show. Yeah.
No, no, I'm not complaining, I'm just pointing it out.
I don't think it went far enough.
There's no talk.
All right, next on the agenda,
Yes,
Public Works.
okay. Please disturb me as we're going through the slides. Because if you ask me for the top four, you're gonna find there is no top four. There's a whole bunch because of the multiple missions that I'm tasked to do.
So we're
And-
gonna look at DPW first or sanitation sewer fund? Or is that
We're gonna
just-
start off with DPW, we're gonna go to ADA, because I'm also the ADA coordinator. Then we're gonna talk about, my fleet, and then we're gonna go to sanitary sewer fund. Okay, and the slides in front of you, so to help follow along and take notes on. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna start off with other money, what we call OPM. So I'm gonna talk the federal and state transportation programs and where our projects are in on it, because that drives what we have to provide in matching. Then there's a topic that you may have heard a long time ago called earmarks, that's now called congressionally directed spending. What that means is the congressman and the senator says, of that money we gave you, you're going to put a portion of that money to this project. But if the Congress and this, doesn't appropriate money to go to that program, we don't get that money. Going to talk about recommended changes to the road program, major differences between next year and this current year, out years, annual program, and you can see the rest of it coming down. Okay, DOT, State Municipal Bridge List. They have so many red list bridges that they have basically frozen any new ones to get in there for about the next 20 years. So that means we have to do enough work on our bridges as they currently exist to make them last for that 20-year time frame. We do have 3 bridges in the program, and we'll go through that in the next few slides. Okay, so the approved 10-year plan, which is 2023 to 2032, right now, there are 2 state projects that are in our area. One is the rehabilitation of the Wood Railroad Bridge on Centenary Ave. That's at the end of the boardwalk. Okay, that's 100% federal money, no match required on that. The other one is the Route 3 bridge over Mile Hill Road. That's not match required because it's a state project, state road. What we are in that program as it presently exists, we've got the Academy Street Bridge, which was originally intended to be done this year, but when they changed the money from being state to federal, all the federal rules that applied to getting easements and real estate actions came into effect and delayed it till next year. The Weirs Boulevard, Langley Cove Bridge, if you blink, you won't see it. It's right in the Christmas Island area as you're heading towards Weirs Beach. And then in 2031, we got the Elm Street Multi-Use Trail, which is TAP money. But we do have, and you'll see that coming on, is we have to do some work on our piece to be able to make the road work right. Okay, yes,
On the Langley, Langley Cove,
yes.
are you interacting with any of the studies that have been done for outflow there?
You'll see more of it come down.
Alright,
Okay, so, in the draft 10-year plan, which they're currently working on, and they had a public hearing not long ago, there's been one change to it, and that's in 2034, it looks like we have a chance of getting money to rehabilitate Union Ave from Main Street going towards Guilford Ave. But that doesn't necessarily count the supported infrastructure that doesn't support a road. In other words, that project would be the road and the drainage system for it. But if there's bad sewer lines and bad water lines underneath it, the 2 parties would have to cover those costs. Congressionally directed spending. This bridge over here, the pedestrian bridge, was picked up by Congressman Pappas to be in the 2024 program.
yay,
Yay. Where are we right now? We're on
Zero.
a continuing resolution. We have no idea what's gonna happen with it. So
They don't either.
we may or may not get funded for this depending upon what things get cut for it, because that's coming out of the HUD economic development portion, not from the transportation program.
Wes,
Yes.
for that bridge, are we replacing it in kind, or are we doing something to kind of liven it up a
Basically
little bit?
replacing it. We're putting a toy type set basically onto the existing concrete. The bridge is going away and put a new piece on the abutments and the supports.
Okay.
Okay, so changes to the city program. At some point, we're probably gonna have to, in the 20-year timeframe, start looking at it being from a road program to a road and bridge program, because there may be years that we're gonna have to take a lot of the road money to fix a bridge until we can get the state bridge aid program opens up again for new bridges to enter into it. And then we were gonna do it last year, but we got shorthanded with departure of some people. So this year, we're gonna try to brief a 10-year road program to the council, really focusing on not every single road, but what are the arterials doing and what are some of the major projects that we're gonna have to do in the city. Okay, so here are some major changes in it. New this year, we've got the Mechanic Street retaining wall, which we're trying to get a good estimate working with a contractor who does that sort of thing. Right now, we think it's around 330. Anybody, you know, the park that's at the intersection of Manchester and Mechanic in Lakeport, if you keep going on Mechanic Street, going up that steep hill to head to Stark, that retaining wall that holds it is the old stone retaining wall back when they built the road. So that retaining wall supports the road, and gravity and freeze-thaw cycle over time is starting to blow the rocks out towards the house. Okay, so we've got it into 2025, but I can't tell you right now what the final numbers are because we're working hard to get that. Elm Street drainage and road, that's what I talked about earlier. The people, I should say, people don't really see the stuff that's underneath the road surface. Okay, so you got water, you got sewer, and you got drainage. It's hard to get money for that from anybody for it. In this particular case, that drainage system really dates back to when they first built it about 100 years ago, at least pieces of it. I have sections where we have a 15-inch pipe that has been offset because of freeze-thaw over time that then feeds into an 8-inch that then goes into a 15 and then goes to an 18. So a lot of times in a heavy rainstorm, you'll be driving Elm Street, you'll see the water coming out of the catch basins. That's because it's too much rain to go from a 15-inch to 8 inches, it's gonna go out. So the TAP project, which is gonna impact the road, we're gonna have to do some things to it to get the drainage to work right. And we're estimating between 1.5 and 1.6 million. At that level, we're talking bonds. And that's gonna have to be tied into when we're doing the TAP project. Now, the TAP may pay for some of it, but it's not gonna pay for all of it because it's not necessarily all within the project area. Academy Street Bridge, we need about another 56,000, what's already funded for our share of that project. Summit Ave, contaminated wells, Laconia Disposal Gardens, our old landfill, capped. We are on the hook for any contaminated well that's contamination is due to that landfill. Before I got here, we extended it on Endicott Street East to get the Gatehouse Colony. Since then, we've extended it once to get past the 8-house colony. Then we had to extend it again to go down to about 2 more houses down the road going towards to Guilford. We got lucky last year in that one of the properties on Summit Ave had a subdivide, so they had to put in a line going down Summit Ave, and guess what? We now have contaminated wells further up down Summit Ave. So I've got 40,000 left to do the work that I have to do to connect houses to potable water. I need another 80,000 to finish off. Where's Beach Docks? It was planned, we got a grant for it. Initial estimate was 225,000. We got 167,000 on it. Bids came in so high between the inflation effect and everything. It was like we needed another 340,000 to do it at those years' prices. And so basically we haven't awarded the contract. We've been working with Department of Environmental Services saying, you know, how much longer is that federal grant gonna go? We're probably gonna lose that grant, but the benefit is it's a 200,000 state piece that's not competitive, at the federal level, it's just competitive at the state, not many people use it. So once the city decides when they want to target money for it, we can go back into the program and try to get that grant again. But the key piece, and you'll see it later on down the road, is that only pays for that portion of the dock that's in 6 feet of water and for boats that are 26 feet long. So anything that's in less than 6 feet of water, we can't use that grant money for. It's 100% for us. Yes.
I know when I was on the Weirs TIF, they were talking about reconfiguring the back part there to allow for smaller boats, such as kayaks or jet skis, to utilize that area.
That would be totally 100% funded by us. So the only thing that this project did is basically we eliminated every other finger and extended the existing fingers out to get into deeper water. The other challenge was, in this case, was once we touch an electrical system, I have to bring the whole electrical system up to code. And no way does that existing system meet code. Now, the issue is gonna be in from once you do have new pieces of docks out there, everyone's gonna be looking at that, the old remaining dock and asking, why didn't we do the remaining dock? Roughly, I think that's about another $330,000, not necessarily to replace it, but to do all the decking and any stringer replacement and any of the tie-down replacement. Okay, out years. Bridges, what we have, some point we're gonna have between 23 and 30, we're gonna have to do an upgrade on Union Ave, Jewett Brook, the one over there by Busy Corner, and then some work on Church Street. If you've been on Church Street recently, you can see where we got one of the joints that's beginning to fail on us, the joint closest to Busy Corner. You can see potholes starting to develop and starting to fracture around the metal plate and the plastic on that side of the bridge. We do have a grant application for the Hilliard Road culvert crossing. It's a picture of it. Basically, no guardrails, narrow piece, and in heavy rainstorm, the water comes up, goes over the first set of culverts, go to the second set of culverts, and it starts penetrating through the subgrade. So we lose subgrade all the time. We're on the second round of RFI for it, so we're not out of the running at the federal level, but I don't know if we're gonna make it or not. But the benefit of this one, that's a 90% grant, 10% match. So hopefully we hear about that soon. Okay.
Are you still looking to build out Hilliard Road?
No. We've had some questions from the councils in the past, and we did that one estimate of what it would take to basically turn Hilliard Road into sort of like the rest of Hilliard Road width-wise, not roller coaster-wise, fully. And it's about $10 million to add new road, basic water system without, all the tanks and everything, and a sewer system of some sort. So you're gonna have something out there that's gonna drive you to put that much money into it. Yeah. Yes.
What about the bridge itself, the dam that is a Calder Bridge on Hilliard?
That's what I was talking about right there.
Yeah, but what about, is that gonna be that way for perpetuity until your retirement, or?
If we get this grant, that's gonna be a huge box culvert.
Alright.
With an open bottom is what the plan would be. But, I mean, that's 1.26, which if the state doesn't open up the Red List Bridge again, we're 20 years down the road before we can do anything.
And that's been that way for the past 10 years.
That's been longer than that, probably.
I'm sure.
Yes.
I was being polite.
Yeah, generally, every time it rains hard right now, we're out there the next day trying to patch it to get the vehicles to be able to cross again. Okay. So, major projects, what we're kind of sort of thinking material-wise, 10-year plan is the ones that we know are fixed are the ones that aren't highlighted in yellow. So we got the Elm Street upgrade tap, which sometime between 25, 26, and 29, we would be doing the drainage project, and we'd be doing the tap upgrade, which is basically a multi-use trail on one side of the street. At some point, it's holding up fairly well. the section of Court Street that basically goes from Durkee, Addison area out towards the town line with Belmont will have to be upgraded. I have 2030 to 2031. That could go longer because it's holding up quite well, but at some point we're going to have to do it. Union Ave, Main to Guilford, if it gets approved in the 10-year plan, we're fixed into 2034. And then we've really got 3 other major roads that we're going to look at, and that's Union Ave from Stark to Blackbrook and Blackbrook to Lake. And those are sort of just placeholders to start considering, because these are big enough ones, we're talking bonds at that level. So the city would have to have enough money to bond to do these projects. And where's boulevards at some point in the future? Yes,
When we rehabilitate a road,
yes,
or in some cases, I know y'all like to take it down to the road base
Right.
itself and then build it back up because it lasts longer. Do we look at the pipes underneath the ground, as you
We do.
mentioned, so that once we've reinstated the road base, it's a stable road again?
and that's basically what we did on Court Street and the section of Union Ave that we have done already. Basically, Elm going towards Stark Street. We looked at what needed to be done, and we did the sewer and the water before we did the actual road itself.
What about the gas pipe that's under there?
We keep Liberty Utilities up to date on what our plans are, and they do what they need to get done as part of it. Just, one of their major issues is they have to go from being cast iron to ductile or plastic. That's
Right.
one of their requirements underneath it. And, you know, all sorts of problems they've had with cast iron. We have very little cast iron left in the city. There are some places. One of the key places we're gonna have to deal with is the railroad crossing area around New Salem and Pleasant.
Yep.
That's cast iron going underneath it, and we've got some bad sewer lines underneath it. So that's gonna be a challenge, but at some point, we're gonna have to tackle it. And you can see Where's Boulevard is to be determined. I mean, we put a lot of money into it, but that's really was just paving. The drainage system still really is not right. It works. We have a lot of complaints about it, but it works. So at some point, we're gonna have to do something.
Chair.
Okay,
Sir.
Wes, when you say where's Boulevard, would that, I understand, I didn't know about the drainage.
Right.
But would that take into consideration bicycle trails, sidewalks? I mean, at some point in time, we're gonna have to bite the bullet here.
Right. You'll see, I've got in the out years a request for some planning money
Okay,
for it.
all right.
But the challenge for sidewalks is gonna be there. That is going to be a challenge with the abutting property owners.
I understand.
So if we're going to do that, that's gonna be critical to fund that, because you're gonna have to have the buy-in before you're willing to commit on the money. Because you've got some very, very steep driveways on that point, and we're gonna impact it major. And you have some lot of parking lots that are right into the city's right-of-way, and we're gonna put a sidewalk through it, and we're gonna have to meet ADA standards, which means it can't be a paved mass. It has to be a distinguished sidewalk that a person who's blind can pick up the differences with, you know, with their walking stick. Okay,
And that means you'll have to maintain it under any snowstorm.
correct. And then if we're adding that many more miles to the city's sidewalk, the Army I'm gonna do it. The Army has what we call DITLOMs. Doctrine, Training, Logistics, Operations, Organization, Maintenance, and Safety. Okay? Every time we're making a change on something, they go through that whole piece to make sure they have the logistics trained behind it to support it. So if we're adding more sidewalks, at some point, council's gonna add more sidewalk tractors, more personnel, which then drives other pieces to be able to do that mission. So that's part of the reason why I've been talking to the planning board, saying, what do you want to do? Because then, if you're putting sidewalks all over the place, and I'm not getting the staff and the equipment to do it, you're putting ourselves at the point where we get underneath ADA.
Have you come to the city council and asked them for more money for that yet? I'm just asking.
Right. I have not,
Okay.
because,
But that was part of the conversation. I mean,
Correct.
that's not something I just dreamed up.
No.
Oh, okay.
that's part, I have requests all the time when we're gonna put sidewalks on it. And the answer to that is I'm not willing to tackle that until I get the planning money to get the
Well,
buy-in.
If I might, Mr. Chair, I just keep seeing, people, when are the bicycle trails coming in, so.
Or the sidewalks.
You'll see it, we'll talk more when we hit ADA on some other
Okay,
aspects, yes.
thank you, Wes.
And to follow up with that bicycle trail and stuff, one of the things, they had a planning session or a public meeting session with Langley Cove Bridge.
Good.
I do believe it was. And that question did come up about if you're gonna have to rebuild the whole bridge, do we build it with a bicycle lane? Even though we don't have the other two sides of it on the road?
Yeah.
But it at least built to accommodate it, so if that time comes, the bridge doesn't have to get modified
Well,
again.
the bicycle lane is probably fairly simple. The sidewalk is not going to be simple at all.
What's the difference?
Pardon?
What's the difference?
ADA requirements. That's the,
Bicycles aren't ADA?
no, bicycles are considered, motor vehicles. They have to obey the same requirements as a motor vehicle. Pedestrians, we have to build it,
In other
so
words,
it's
you can-
certain
if you're
cross
drunk
slopes, certain
driving on a
grades and
bicycle,
everything.
You can get a ticket.
Oh,
I don't have
is,
that type of place.
Langley Cove, the
I fell off
development
one.
still putting in a percentage for the?
Yeah, you'll see that coming up.
Okay.
South Carolina.
Okay, so I have two paint buggies. And so you see my guy Gavin and Mike out there. One's riding the little cart with the paint sprayer. Well, I got one for white, I got one for yellow. We bought one to replace one color, it's time to buy one for the other color. That's basically what that is. It's old and needs to be replaced. We already talked about Summit Ave well contamination. The last report, last testing, and I have to do testing twice a year. That's underneath the permit requirement, is that we're starting to see increase further down Summit Ave and towards, I hate to say this, the well for Lakes Region Water Supply, or Lakes Region Water Company. It's not getting to the point yet where we're gonna have to take action because it hasn't hit that magic number yet. It's underneath it, but you can see the numbers are starting to go up. So that could change in the future on short notice, that we have to start providing potable water to other residences. Talked about the bike lanes and sidewalk along Weirs Boulevard, got that for 2028.
Going back to this landfill, that's the one, over by the ice rink?
Yes.
No. We have three landfills in the city. We have the Laconia Disposal Gardens, which is really sort of behind Plantation and Colonial Development, behind Governor's Crossing, runs parallel to Endicott Street East. That one closed back in the 80s, 90s.
And that's the one we're looking at putting a solar field on.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, that's number one. Then we have number two, which is the Frank Bean Burn Dump, which is basically between Old Moran Road, Frank Bean Road, and is on both sides of it. That one just got closed in 2017. We're still working through all the paperwork to do all the final closure process of it. The third one is the Moran Road landfill, which is basically south of Moran Road. It's right beside the burn dump. That one, we're in the study process to determine what we have to do, and you'll see that coming up down the road. But let's see. Yeah, matter of fact, it's on this slide too, to agree. We're kind of thinking, based off of how we're progressing, that we're gonna have to start putting design money forward to start doing the design in 2027.
So on this one that appears to be causing us some issues,
Right.
concerns, is there something to address those concerns, or is just putting a
It's-
new water pipe in
It's basically
is
as it
all we can
progresses.
do?
Because it was capped, but you still have groundwater coming off the hill that runs underneath the cap, because it wasn't built, it wasn't built with a liner underneath it a long time ago, so it just has a liner on top. So we're basically chasing 1,4-dioxane, that's the one that we tend to hit the most. We also have an issue with arsenic. We raised that issue back, we explained the issue back to DES, not this year, but last year, and haven't heard back from them. Our analysis is that's natural arsenic that's coming from all the granite in the area. Let's see. Drainage, we've got one coming up for 2026. There's a old stone drainage pipe that runs underneath the house. That's, as you're going down Pine Street towards Main Street, that is starting to leak into the house. So at some point, we're gonna have to get it out from underneath the house. Electrical vehicle charging stations, we have a placeholder in for 2027, because at some point, we're gonna have to provide that service as public service in the city. Opeechee boat ramp, again in 2027.
We could probably use grant money for that.
You can use a lot
Oh,
for it,
there's
but you're
some-
gonna have to decide, we're gonna have to go through and decide where we wanna put it. And the grant money doesn't cover everything, but it could, depending upon, you know, what the plans and everything are.
Yeah, 'cause I got a feeling the state's gonna probably have some state grant money for
The state,
EV charging stations and
yeah,
stuff.
and
At the,
the state's priority right now is to build the major corridors.
right.
That's not us, because that's why you're starting to see more charging stations out there by Tanger Outlet and everything.
Would these be free, like the ones at Tanger?
Pardon?
Would these be free, or would there be a charge?
Again, that'd be up to the city at that point.
Gotcha.
There's no free electricity.
Gas isn't
Would-
free.
I say no.
Apeche boat ramp is gonna need some rehab at some point. We put it in for 2027. Basically, the concrete blocks are starting to corrode and such. And then, you'll see it, I don't have it because I don't wanna put a date against it. We need a new public works building, okay? We need about 20 to 30 acres. So, for those who don't know about public works, it was the old Mander Pontiac building. It was built on a swamp. I have 7 feet of peat underneath the building. And the building was built like you would a house. The ground supports the floor of the garage. The ground has, I have places where I have a 1.5 foot gap between the bottom of the slab and the top of the ground. One of my main projects over this winter time is to start working the issue of where do we go and how much it's gonna cost. But this isn't gonna be cheap.
You've been in front of us for 5 years with this.
Yep.
Anyways, right?
And we've got enough money now
Sure.
to keep on with the process. So now we're gonna have to really get to the point where are we gonna go? And
Can
what
it
are we moving
be
there?
done on the same plot? No.
No. Yeah, you could, but you have no expansion capability. If you're adding more sidewalks and you're adding more streets that I have to plow, it means you gotta add more trucks.
What do you do with the old plot?
Sell it.
$1?
Yep.
Oh, no.
But everyone's gotta make it, everyone has to remember something.
For a car
I'm not
wash.
in one site, okay? I have my Public Works headquarters
Tired of
building
giving
right
away
beside
things
Irwin
for
Ford,
a dollar.
site number 1. I have
Biscuit,
my
too.
maintenance facility, which I can't get all of the fire trucks into, and I can't get the new police command post into because they're too tall. That's on Messer Street, across from Dutile Oil.
All right.
Behind Dutile Oil, I have the 1920s era, what we call the New England Yard, which is basically storage. It used to be Public Service of New Hampshire, and I can't remember if that was the creosote dipping area or the area where they cracked coal to make natural gas. So that site's contaminated, okay? Then I have the Old Moore Road landfill where I keep all my big supplies and stuff that I don't have room for. That one is a landfill, which means you can't build on any place where there's a landfill. So that means I gotta move everything I got from there to another site, or I'm hauling from one location to another location all the time. And by the way, I got cut off from Guilford's leaf composting situation. Now I'm hauling all my leaves to Old Moran Road, dumping in a big hollow there, because I need someplace to get rid of it.
So they don't take it anymore, cause I got called out. Why do I bring the leaves to the disposal area and put the weight of disposal on the leaves on Public Works? So I said, why don't you just bring it to Guilford?
Guilford's not taken anymore from Laconia. They're overwhelmed by how much leaves they're getting from Guilford now. They don't have enough room to compost what they're getting from Guilford. So basically, we have a central location, so I don't have to station somebody down at Old Moran Road all the time for people to dump their leaves down there, which, by the way, it's not safe for them to do it, because it's a steep hill that we're backing into to dump our leaves. Okay.
Speaking of composting, you're talking about the leaves. I know there's other states that have actually required separate trash for food items that can be composted. Is that something that we're thinking about?
I have.
You know how much waste that accounts for is considerable.
I'll back up again, piece for it. We'll talk big picture wise. What level of service are we talking about? Curbside collection?
No, I maybe, where residents could bring items to.
Then we'd have to negotiate with Waste Management to be able to have site, because although the permit is to us, they're the ones who write it, because they're the ones who actually operate the transfer station. And then the question is, what is Waste Management going to require us to do to be able to do that? Is there gonna be additional fees?
Of course there will be.
Yep.
It's waste management.
So, there are some things out there where people can buy, and I think one's called Vitamix or something, where you can actually put it in, you gotta plug it in, you gotta compost it. My wife, the only thing we throw in the trash is the bones. Everything else, goes into the compost pile and just sits there, and she uses it for her pots and plants and gardening. Yeah.
Wes, I don't mean to add to your problems, but prior tonight, we heard about an addition for Parks and Recreation,
Right.
and maintenance and the whole works. I hope you give some consideration to maybe we need a Parks, Public Works complex. That one complex would take care of all of this instead of piecemealing this all over the city.
I have suggested
Okay.
that, at least the community center may not be appropriate for it. But it may be appropriate for all the service section, I'll put it that way. My personal preference, old military person, sorry, is I gotta have plenty of access routes. So I can send guys north, I can send guys east, I can send it west, I can send them south. My preferred location is someplace around the intersection of Meredith Center Road and Parade Road.
Oh, the state school.
State School would be good, or the old McIntyre
place, yep.
property,
For sale.
okay?
It
That's,
hasn't been sold yet.
Is that the one that's right on the corner there of Old North Main and?
it's actually on both sides of Lane Road, as you're going up,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
north of,
I thought about putting the high
North
school
of
a
Elm
couple
Street.
years ago.
yeah,
Who owns that property?
McIntyre
Okay.
still owns it.
Is there a lot of wetlands there?
There is, but if we get both parcels, we should have enough room between both lots to be able to put everything
It's
there.
sinking,
Is that where the 911?
911's going up the
Going
top
up the
across
hill.
from Rari Mills. So we'd be down lower, closer
Lower.
to Parade.
Where the old high school, where
Well, the
one?
high school plan was, yep.
Yeah, okay.
The one thing we are still considering though is we're probably gonna keep the Messer Street building, because most of our sidewalk effort is really downtown in this piece, and having sidewalk tractors, which aren't the most fuel efficient and way driving from that site down. So we'd probably keep the Messer Street building to keep the sidewalk tractors in there. And the crews would meet up there, go down, get into their vehicles and there and go out to do that piece of work. Somebody may be interested in buying the New England yard if they're willing to put enough money into cleaning it up to put buildings on it. Okay, some other pieces that we're looking at is aerial mapping in 2026. The last time we did it was 2016. It really helps when you're trying to figure out where houses are and what the relations is. I'm in that tax map with that up just about every single day talking with residents. And then we have on the ADA side, we have a request for a crosswalk across Endicott Street North. At 20,000 is making the assumption that the state allows us to reduce the speed limit in that area, so we can get away with the rapid rectangular flashing beacons like we have down at Vista and other places. If they keep the speed limit high enough, we're probably gonna have to do the systems that you see in downtown Meredith, the big overhead arch with it on.
So, sir, so when you say reduce the speed limit, you talk about 35 to 30?
We'd have to get down to 30, yep.
But in Meredith, it's 30 where they have the
Correct.
overhead.
Yeah, and it's really, when you look at it for that piece, it's based off of two things. Speed, three. Speed, the amount of traffic, and the amount of pedestrians crossing.
In Meredith?
Yep.
Okay.
So we would, as it sits right now, the only crossings that we would probably have from the west side to the east side, I think, no, south side to north side, is Meredith Center, Meredith Bridge condos, and Where's Beach Village would be the high numbers for year-round traffic.
And this is at the Hilliard Road intersection?
Above
It'd have
it.
to be someplace around Hilliard Road or south, because we gotta get the traffic stopping off and sight line.
Is
So,
it-
are you talking about 2 crosswalks?
No, we're
Because
talking
most of the
one.
people come out of that community.
Yeah, the state won't buy that, and one of the reasons they won't is because of the curve right up around the
Around
corner
it,
there.
right. You gotta have sight, you have to have the right sight distance. And sight distance
We
is
fought
based
that
off of
already.
speed
Didn't work.
and distance.
That subdivision that's going in at the top of the hill there, are they not, are they contributing to,
You'll see that later. We got 11,000 for them. This is actually about 35, 36.
Okay.
But we got 11,000 from them, so.
And how much would you estimate if you couldn't get the state to reduce the speed limit? How much would it cost then?
Last time we estimated it was someplace between 90 and 100,000.
Okay.
Okay. Probably, when you ask me what the big ones that we have to do, you know, the top 4, you're looking at them, okay? When I get beat up on the city, there's 2 things, just about everybody. Well, forgetting trash. I get more questions dealing with trash than anything else. Is roads, when my road gonna be fixed? And you're flooding me out, okay? So the priority is road program dollars and then drainage dollars, okay? I've been getting about $1.5 million a year for a few years. Everyone's seen the cost of inflation going up, right? That ain't nowhere near what the cost of inflation is for construction. You look at the advertisements right now, they're paying $35 an hour, they're advertising for a CDL driver, okay? What's driving the cost of construction right now isn't necessarily the materials anymore, it's the labor, okay? So you may be giving 1.5, you may be giving 1.6, but what's actually happening is your effective on the roads that you're getting done is being reduced, okay? Associated with that is every time I pave a surface road that has sidewalks on either side, as a minimum, I have to bring the crossing points up to ADA standard, as a minimum. If the sidewalk's in real bad shape, I gotta bring them up. So what may have cost me for just like a paving job, say 70,000, because I gotta do both sidewalks at the same time, I may double my cost. So we have been very selective for the last few years of really focusing on those roads that didn't have sidewalks and didn't have drainage. So I could try to get those roads up to a decent standard. I have not done much in the way of rebuilding except those that, the only option I had was to fix them. Paga Street, I don't know if anybody lives in the Lakeport area. The road had settled such that the manholes were sticking 8 to 10 inches above the level of the road. And that's just because the soil was junk underneath it. So this year we bite the bullet, went out there, and we're actually dug out all the bad soil, put better soil underneath it, put a fabric underneath it, and then put good rock on. So we could get it so I don't lose a plow truck every time we're trying to plow it, and that the residents don't have to worry about taking out their transmission or exhaust system, okay? So that's the one challenge to it. So we've been very selective on that. We are not, on the drainage side, we are not a municipal separate storm sewer system community yet. What that means is, depends upon what they put in the permit requirements. We have a permit for our sewer collection system, okay? This is the permit so you can dispose of your stormwater into the nation's lakes, rivers, and streams. So you have to meet the requirements of that. And that requirements is not necessarily quantity-based, it's quality-based. We're already facing that to a degree right now. Every single time I put a new outlet to the lake, I have to install a quality system of some sort to treat the water before I put it into the lake. When we did Union Ave between Elm and Stark, we put a huge underground water quality treatment unit in the parking lot of Waterworks to treat the water before it went to the lake. I recently had to put in a new outlet to Lake Opeechee on Franklin Street. We were able to get easements from the 2 adjoining property owners. We built basically a surface treatment system, wetland type operation, to be able to treat the water to go in. So every time I'm putting a new outlet, I have to do it. What this says is every time I'm doing a project, I have to put in something that treats water, that treats the water before it goes back into the lake. That's basically what that's gonna say. If you wanna find out, talk to your counterparts in the south who are already facing it. Right now, they're in the area of Pembroke, Bow, down in that. The next permits opens up in either this year or next year, and we'll see how far north they go for it. Okay. That's,
If I may.
Yes.
I'm sure I'm not understanding the permit. The state is allowing permits
oh,
to
no,
do
no, no,
this?
this is
or-
federal. This is
The
a federal
federal.
permit. EPA issues the permit to us. The permit that we have for the sewer system doesn't come from Department of Environmental Services, it comes from EPA. We are co-permittee with the DES, Department of Environmental Services, on the collection system that operates the treatment plant out in Franklin. So we have to meet the same permit standards that's imposed upon the state in their role as operating a treatment plant. The only difference is we don't have the plant, we have to meet all the other requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty much decided, we're gonna keep one RFP, Rapid Rectangular Flashing Beacon, like we have at Vista and other places, in the program every year. Cost about $17,000 to $20,000 just to purchase the items, then depending upon what we have to do to bring the area around it up to ADA standards, it's another 20 to 25. Yes.
On those, the one there up there by Canton's
Right.
Chevrolet, did
Yes.
we pay for that, or did they
We
pay for
did,
that?
because we wanted to put them in at the intersection of Mechanic, or by,
But it's not there.
but we couldn't, because we can't dump a sidewalk anymore into a driveway. So then we had to negotiate with Canton's, where could we put the dump location? And so we paid for the installation of the two,
Geez,
rapid spectacular flashing beacons, and then they paid for the piece to get from our sidewalk into their yard.
Piece of, equipment.
Curb cut,
Pardon?
curb cut.
That was ours. I mean, we were gonna have to pay that no matter what.
Is there some point
Towns
in
thinks they
time
paid for it.
we can move their semis off the main road into their huge parking lot that's mostly empty, so they can unload their cars in their parking lot and not in
I'd
the middle
love to
of our
do that,
road?
yes. I'd love to actually do that with Irwin Ford too.
You know, if you do that, then you gotta talk about UPS trucks, you gotta talk about Amazon trucks, 'cause
But
they
they're
do that.
quicker. They come and go
They may be
quicker.
quicker, but that doesn't necessarily improve it for you when you come up behind them.
Sure.
Because that goes on all over the city, on narrow two-way streets like Messer Street, in downtown places like that, so.
Is there a new crosswalk going on Elm Street in front of the country club?
Yes,
Is
but
it
we're
one of
not paying
those?
we're not paying for those RRFPs, because the only people who cross at that point
Golf
is
course.
the country club.
So they're paying for it?
They're paying for that. We did the ADA portion
Yep.
for it. They're paying for the rapid flashing beacons, and they're paying for what needs to be done on their side.
It's great.
That's
It's
good.
It's needed there. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
Just,
paying for it.
just for your edification, golf carts are not pedestrians. Golf carts have to give the right of way to traffic on the road. Pedestrians.
Good luck.
They don't always act that way, though.
They don't, but that's,
Thank you.
right.
Depends on what they have for lunch.
Okay. Sidewalks, we generally try to get sidewalk money each year to help us with the road program in places, or do those sidewalks that need to get done separately. The challenge is, in certain cases in the city, I can't do a sidewalk separately unless I do the road, because I gotta have a distinguishing feature to say this is the difference between the road and the sidewalk. The challenge I'm gonna have or down the city will have in the future is, how do we distinguish, like on Winter Street, where the sidewalk and the road is about the same level? That really doesn't cut the mustard. I just can't paint the line, because a blind person can't pick up the line. So we're gonna have to start thinking of curbing, and whether it be asphalt curbing or granite curbing on these.
Is that the same issue we have on Providence Street, on the Main Street side of Providence Street?
Yep.
Where the sidewalk and the road are,
Yep. If it's different material, a blind person is taught to listen to the sound and pick up the difference. But if it's asphalt and asphalt, there's no way they can tell if they're veering off and going into traffic. Fence, guardrails, and retaining walls. This year we had 50K. Anyway, see all the new guardrail that went in on Weirs Boulevard recently. That cost us $50,000. There's a height requirement that we have to meet between the height of the guardrail and the asphalt. We raise the asphalt, I gotta raise the guardrail. And then the annual bridge maintenance, this year we got $300,000 because we had to do Messer Street. So we're dropping it down to $30,000 for the next year. Other annual programs, the parking garage, $25,000 I put in every year for annual safety inspection.
Is that how much dynamite's gonna take to get rid of it? No?
It'd be simple if there's no buildings underneath it
All right,
that's occupied.
just check.
Yeah, so I don't know what's happening with it, so I always program the 25,000, and we need to do this annual safety inspection until we get rid of it. I just got the estimate in for this year's safety inspection, because we have to do a large one, because it's been so long, we gotta get into the actual offices underneath, check underneath. So it's gonna take about 3/4 of that 25,000 just for the inspection. Moran Road, unchanged, still at 10K, because we're getting ready to work all the workings that we have to do with Department of Environmental Service to determine what is the next step. Once we hit that next step, costs are going up. DPW vehicle purchases, 240 to 245, and I'll go more on that later. And then we're asking a little bit always for the last few years for some gravel road maintenance money. That's basically to build up the gravel roads to something, so hopefully we don't have to keep going out there during mud season and try to recover them.
Do the edges of the road, like where the, water, we have a lot of excessive water.
Right.
I notice a lot on the edges of the road, the drop is more than what one would imagine would be safe for a motorcycle or something.
Yeah, and
To
part of
pull
it is,
over. Is that in that same fund, or is that something else?
well, no, when we do that, that's part of what we look at. But we have to, in certain cases, you have to have that drop because you gotta have gravity flow the water. So it really depends more upon where your culverts are and how much slope that you've gotta have to keep the water flowing. And then downtown pedestrian bridge, I put 5K in just in case Congress didn't give us the money to do the pedestrian bridge. Okay. The city has to have an ADA coordinator, required. I am the ADA coordinator, okay? Other places, it's the assistant city manager, but we don't have an assistant city manager, so I'm the stuckee. It has been a federal requirement since 1990 to have a self-assessment complete and a transition plan complete. We have completed the self-assessment. We're working on the transition plan. The transition plan is just not a list of prices. It's a list of the estimated costs, where you're gonna do that, and the funding stream to go with it, okay? So, basically, the way it's set up, the way the federal rules and regulations and laws are all associated with that, if we don't have it, someone complains, US DOJ, Civil Rights Bureau, comes to us and asks, how are you gonna fix the problem? Okay, so you'll see it in a couple more slides. We've got in there a placeholder to start putting the money again that we can start putting against projects on it. We have 2 requests already. One is the accessible crosswalk on Endicott Street North that we already talked about, and one is approving ADA accessibility from Sunrise Towers to get them up to Apici Park. We're close. We've got the crosswalks already fixed at Main Union and Court. We've got the crosswalks fixed at Church and Main. We gotta get the crosswalks fixed at Oak and Main. And then you'll have a complete ADA accessible route to go up there.
What's the problem with the crosswalks at Oak and Main?
They don't meet
What's
ADA
missing?
standards. There's they have to have detector plates. Detector plates have to be the right slope. They have to have so much area so the person pushes the push button, but another person can get around them.
Okay.
So it is not that easy. The simplest way to think of, maybe I can give you an example. Cross slope on a sidewalk can't be any greater than 2%. So all means all the sidewalks, 2% is to get the water to flow off, but it's to make sure that the wheelchair person isn't leaning too much, okay? There's an exception for slope in the direction of travel of the road. So if the road goes like this, the sidewalk can go like that. The difference comes in is when you're crossing, say, a driveway. The slope has to be 1 in 12 to get down to that driveway and get back up to it, unless it's longer than 20 feet, then you stop at that point. So there's all these rules that we have to meet. Even the downtown, all the concrete sidewalks don't meet the ADA standards.
The concrete sidewalks don't meet it?
No, cross slopes are too high.
The what's too high?
Cross slopes, it's more than 2%. So when we go to do the streets in downtown, I legally have to bring the sidewalks up to standards. Okay.
It is important. I spent 8 months in a wheelchair, and I will vouch.
No, I'm just
for
curious. No, I understand that,
pains
and I would never
one takes
debate
in a
that.
wheelchair.
I would never debate that, Steve. I'm just curious about the concrete sidewalks, because I've not noticed anybody with wheelchairs having problems. I have several customers that come in all the time,
Yep.
so what I should be looking for, I guess is my question.
When you build a sidewalk on your private property to get to a business, you have to meet that requirement. So you gotta worry about cross slope, and you gotta worry about your, the slope as it going into the,
So it's the slope you're talking
it's the
about,
slope is the biggest.
not the concrete, but the slope.
It's the slope.
The hell out of that wheelchair.
Okay, so you'll see right from the ADA projects that we're considering to help keep us out of trouble is construction of the Tardif Park playground access. 30,000, and design for O-Pee-Chee Park facilities ADA improvements is at 80. That's what we're asking for this year. We got the crosswalk for Endicott Street in 2026, and the execution of the ADA transition plan like I was talking about. So we're starting to try to put in $160,000 a year to get to there. All right, near and dear. So what we have completed to date for traffic signals and the intersections to bring them up to standards is we got the ones that you see. Ones that are programmed to be done are the 2 on Union Ave that would be part of the Union Ave improvement project. And then remaining, we've got the Beacon Street, Church Street intersection and the Main and Oak Church Street intersection. The price jumped up drastically for the Church and Beacon Street East intersection because as part of the downtown improvement study, we did an analysis of what we need to do to improve traffic flow into and out of the Church Street parking lot, which is now the city's. And the engineer, specialist dealing with traffic recommended that we put another signal in that faces the exit that comes between the residence and the library. So that would tell the people there when they can come out and when it's safe to make left and right turns. So that most of that additional money is inflation and the cost associated with adding that signal.
At that intersection by the post office is what you're talking
Yes.
about? I don't know, maybe it's just me, and it could be. If you're gonna make a left turn and you're there, and if you pull too far up, you don't see the light.
Right.
Would that get fixed at some
It'd
point?
be fixed as
in-
part of this, right.
Okay.
Because we fixed the whole intersection at that point.
Can I ask a question, Wes? Would that added traffic light for the parking lot, would that be put into a system of 4 separate sinks? Or would that be
It would
at the
be
same time as the other
At
one?
the same time,
Okay.
yeah.
Beautiful, all right.
Again, for my edification, where is this extra light over there?
If you're on Church Street, you've got the library.
Yep.
And you have the old,
Boswell House.
yeah,
Boswell House,
the
whatever it's
house
called.
that's now occupied by the people who own Rawls.
Yeah.
There's an exit that comes out, there's an entrance exit that comes out there. That would become out only, and the light would be facing down that exit to tell the person who's sitting there when it's safe to come out.
So that it's safe for them to come out from the library?
Nope, not the library. You have a library,
Back parking lot.
there's a parking lot, there's an entrance.
Oh, yeah, I remember the parking
There's
lot.
3, there's three ways in and out of the Church Street parking lot. You got one to the left of the White House, the old Buzel House.
Yep.
You got one to the right, then you got one that's between the church, old church, and the old school building.
How far apart are these lights to be? 3 car lengths?
No, the lights are gonna be exactly where they are. The only difference is they're gonna have one additional light head pointing
All right,
towards that
All right.
outlet,
I get it.
okay? Then, because it seems to have come up recently, the flashing left turn arrows,
Yeah.
okay? So that's where they're sitting. So I got 2 right now at Main, Union Court, another set at Union and Elm. Where you could have them are those others, and the others, you really shouldn't have them just because of the nature of the beast there.
You
Okay?
should what?
You shouldn't have them at Union Messer, Beacon Street East Church, or Main Church, 'cause it just doesn't make sense at those locations.
So I'm curious about Union and Guilford Avenue. Right now, when you're coming south on Union Avenue, heading towards Busy Corner,
Right.
you wanna make a left turn on Guilford Ave. They have a solid green light there. That seems to work fine. So what's the difference?
No, all I said is you could have.
You could
I
have.
didn't- Right.
That seems to be the, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. You had your hand up.
Well, I was gonna say, have you had any complaints about the arrows yet?
I've-
Because what I found is that
It's
during
dangerous.
tourist season, the yellow option for them, as long as they can keep the line going, they don't yield to the green.
They have those all over the country, so I wouldn't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I
this is,
wouldn't put it
this
towards
is nothing
tourists.
new.
No, I'm just saying, no, it's just, it's just more noticeable in the summer. And again, I'm sure it'll be noticeable all year. It's just, I was surprised that they don't yield.
Well,
Well, they
you're
don't
asking-
yield for crosswalks either, so
Right.
what's the difference?
You'll see that
And
in the
again,
next one.
and again,
You're right.
I would ask you to, if you think there's accidents, and maybe Wes has information, but I've constantly asked the police department if they have any records of accidents at there and up on Elm Street because of that, and my answer I've been getting is no.
Probably a lot of near misses.
Well, there's near misses no matter where you go in this
Yeah.
city.
Yeah.
I'm curious what that number would be if the person
Number?
with the green light was to just keep going even though they're turning.
A number,
Would the accidents go up? I mean, because it's supposed to be a yield
I'm
light.
talking about how it works right now.
Yeah, I mean, I get that.
And their answer was there have been no accidents.
I get that.
It's a standard that you
Misses .com.
can use, you don't have to use at this point.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I actually understand the premise behind it is it actually cuts down on emissions. I totally get that. It's just,
Fine.
yeah.
So the next one that seems to be raising a lot of issues, and the first thing I'm gonna state on this one is pedestrians, you gotta be dead right, okay? The no right turn on red line, when that sign lights up, no one is supposed to make a right turn at all. Doesn't make a difference if pedestrians in the crosswalk or not. They're not supposed to make a right turn when that sign's lit. If you're trusting a driver to obey that, I'll see you in the emergency room at some point. You're responsible for your own safety. So right now, we've got them at Union Court, and we got Union and Elm. Okay,
Okay, when I asked the question,
yes.
I was told, if there's no one in the sidewalk, well, that's a law enforcement issue then.
Right, yep,
Okay,
yep.
But
Once that's lit up, there is no right turn on red anymore.
Including the
Except I did-
countdown,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But we've had bills down in the Transportation Committee to change that and to make it so that if there is nobody in the crosswalk, you can make the right turn. I'm just pointing
Right.
out,
Yep.
there have been bills introduced.
I wouldn't vote for it, so I'll
Well,
tell you
that's,
that.
you're not in
ahead
that
of time.
Transportation
Okay.
Committee.
Forget these two intersections. The current rules is how our signals are set up. When you push the button, all traffic stops. During the portion where the white hand is up, no one makes a right turn on red. You cannot make a right turn on red with the white hand. Once it goes flashing red, you can make a right turn if no pedestrian's in the crosswalk. If you make a right turn on red when that white hand is up, it's got you.
if they're there.
So that effectively, that lighted no turn on red sign, when that's lit up, it's like the white hand being there.
I don't know what the difference is, but I was in Concord today, and as I was leaving the parking lot for where we park and crossing the street there, as I was approaching the street, cars stopped. They didn't decide, they didn't push it. One truck sat there waited for me to get into the intersection and walk out. So I don't know what the difference there is, but the drivers there seem to be trained to stop for crosswalks. Whereas here,
Oh, it's
they
kinda like
are
that in Concord.
trained to speed up for a crosswalk because they might have to stop.
The,
Culture.
the engineering piece and dealing with intersections and roads and whatever,
That's
there's three legs to the
the
stool.
word for culture.
Engineering, education, and enforcement. If one of those legs isn't there, it's
It's
not gonna.
enforcement.
In this case, we're missing two of them.
No,
Yep.
it's enforcement, for sure. The problem
Education
is,
and
people in
enforcement.
Concord get used to people stopping like that. Then they go to another city, maybe a big city, and without them being too bright, they just walk right out into the street thinking, well, they're gonna stop for me. Which, as Wes said, it's, you're responsible for your own safety.
Yep.
And that,
And they do it with their cell phone in front of their face.
well, that's when they walk into the light post,
But
right?
Charlie, when you're standing in the center of the road and they pass you in the crosswalk, that is,
Yeah, and
That's-
and
that
and
is-
again, it's a good thing to stop and let them go by.
that's when you pull out your safe,
I just let 'em
your
go by.
concealed weapon because you're
Go
being
by.
assaulted by a car.
Okay. DPW vehicle replacement. How do I put this? We're focusing on the future. That includes what techniques and what equipment that we want to buy now for doing different things in the future. One of the things we have to watch is EPA has just issued another proposal to change the diesel emission standards.
What, from above stage 4?
Yep,
Really?
yep,
Come on.
nope. It's out in the street right now for comments.
Are you grandfathered in? Would you be?
Existing vehicles would be grandfathered. Any new vehicles would have to meet the new standard, however, it's implemented. Last
you,
time
California.
the tier standards were implemented, it added about $10,000 to $15,000 per truck. Okay? So in fiscal year '24, this year I got 240,000. I'm asking for 245. That's not gonna keep up with inflation, but we'll see from that standpoint. I pay on average about $100,000 per year for bonds and lease to purchase payments. So I only get about 140. I got a truck that's 2003 that I need to get replaced. We're putting in for a grant application to see if we can get it. The last vehicle that I purchased that size was 220,000 configured for plowing. Current price estimate, talking with both the manufacturer and the bodybuilder, is we're closer to 259,000 per truck now. And if I do a lease to purchase on it, I do for 5 years. Because at that point, the vehicle's gonna start costing me more to fix. Sidewalk tractor with a snow blower and a plow, I'm around $190,000 a year. My toys are expensive. Yeah. So when we were talking before about, we wanna put more sidewalks in, you gotta figure out what your cost for personnel, what your cost for the equipment, where we're gonna park the equipment, do we have enough place to store them? All that needs to be considered underneath it. So we really need to do a master plan on the infrastructure in the city that then we can start driving that from the decisions the council needs to make. Can they afford it for all the other costs?
You sell this equipment?
Pardon?
You ever sell this equipment when
We
it gets
do
too
for the
old?
most part. We try to trade it in as much as we can, but certain times they're so in bad shape, they won't give us anything for it. And then underneath the current ordinance for the city, my only two options, I can put them out for RFP, put out for bid saying how much you want to buy it, or I got to take it to the White Farm. I have asked to give us a third option. There are organizations called MuniBid or whatever, who follow the proper procedures for auctioning, but you basically put it on their website and it gets auctioned off. We get the money from it. The person buys it, pays an overhead fee to the company, and we can get rid of it faster than waiting for the auction.
What about statewide contracts? Anything available?
It is.
Yeah.
For the most part, we try to get our big vehicles off of statewide contracts.
Mhm.
But since COVID, what happened, it's getting real interesting. Your order window may be 2 weeks. Because because they have so much backlog, they'll sell out a whole vehicle, whole manufacturer's vehicle production for a year in 2 weeks. So the current time from, if you get it ordered to the time you get it is about a year right now. So, it's challenging for PWs and, for everybody who's trying to get a truck. The advantage that private guys have is, if they got the money, they can do it right then. We have to go through the process to get approvals and everything. Okay, you may not be able to see it on the thing, but it's in your piece. I'm getting pretty good on my large plow truck fleet. That's my 6-wheelers, the big yellow ones. I've got 2 that are older than 2018. One's a 2003, and one's like a 2006 or 7. My 550s, they're easier to replace, so they're in much better shape. I've got 2 that plow. I've got one that is the crane truck for the sewer guy, and then I got another one that's one of our emergency response sort of vehicles for it. On the sidewalk plows, other than my multi-hog, which I bought, everything's old. I'll just put it that way. And my construction equipment's starting to get to the point where I've got to start looking to replace those too. And that's my 2 scoop loaders and my John Deeres and my Bobcats. We put in, we don't necessarily get it all the time, 10K for what we call a document storage system. I have a lot of historic documents. I have if anyone's been watching the city council talk about Pickerel Pond Road, I have Meredith's books from the 1700s. Okay, we had to send them out to get them recovered so that we would have it for posterity, as well as having the historical documents themselves, because they are historical. So that's what we're gradually doing. So we've got, for the most part, the street records done. But then we have all the field books. They're about half the size of a sheet of paper, okay? Those are the ones the old surveys would take out to them and write everything down that they found. Well, guess what? The surveyors now keep going back to those to figure out things. So we're in the process of starting to try to recover those records so that we have them for posterity. And some are dated 1800s and early 1900s.
When you say recover, is that y'all scanning them, digitizing them?
When we get them back, they actually do everything to save the book, plus they've scanned it and digitized it for us.
Okay.
So we have the historical piece that we do, and we're going to try getting some of the grants that you can get from the license plates to do some of it. But we've got 3, big bookcase just about full of all these field books. Yes.
I thought I was reading in here, where are you storing those books when you get them back? Because didn't you have a water infiltration problem?
Yeah. We're actually in the good piece for it.
Okay, I can wait,
No, it's right, because it's a DPW building. I talked about how we don't have any things. Well, the floor is dropping. I had an 8-inch main water line that came into the building. It snapped. The weight of the concrete didn't rust out. The weight of the concrete putting pressure against it snapped the pipe. And all of the historical surveys and books are all kept in the room that's beside that. Now, the room is double firewalled to buy us more time for the fire department to put out the fire, but it doesn't count for water that's sneaking underneath the door. So we rapidly drilled holes in the floor while Waterworks was trying to get the valve to work to turn off the flow coming into the building.
Okay.
And we didn't have any damage in the vault, in the storeroom, but we were lucky.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
I'm more than happy to give a tour to anybody who wants to come down and they can see all the holes in the floors that we have done over the years. Try to figure out what's going on. And I have bottles showing what's underneath the building.
Please schedule it for after 5 p.m. because he's already working his butt off during the day, so evening tours.
Okay. Moran Road landfill, Reed's wrecking yard. It's basically southwest, east of it. 14.4 acres are in Laconia, 47 acres we own are in Guilford. The last year and a half, we've been working to try to find out where the extent of the contamination of the landfill was. And it goes a little bit into the wrecking yard. Goes just about south to almost Durkee Brook, because Durkee Brook goes through it. And it goes into Guilford to a degree, but it doesn't go all the way in because Durkee Brook is sitting there. So it gets close to it in places. We have sent the results of what we found to Department of Environmental Services. They've got to tell us and confirm that they're happy with that and that we're ready to go to the next step. Department of Environmental Services is short-staffed, really short-staffed. Generally, if I give them something, in 6 months, I'll get something back. The report that we did last year for the Laconia Disposal Gardens, we've seen the results come back yet from them. And we're already sending them the next report. Okay. Best guess is I think in 2027, we're going to start designing the remediation project. That's probably somewhere around 100,000. And then just by the cost of what I think we did on Frank Bean, probably the remediation is going to be somewhere around 600,000. But I won't know that until we get this is what we shall do from Department of Environmental Services. Okay. Just a little bit about Public Works compound. Things that we're thinking of is we generate a lot of construction debris. So that's asphalt and concrete. We got to have a place to hold it till we can get it crushed, or we're sending it to someone else who's charging us a fee for disposing of it, and they're going to crush it. We got to figure out what we're doing with leaves in grass, yard waste, because we're going to, once we get to a point, we're going to have to figure out a composting operation, or we're going to have to pay somebody to compost it. The other
Do we
piece
do that as a service for the city, picking up leaves?
Pardon?
Do we do that as
No, they have to bring it to my transfer station. And the only thing we accept is residential. If you're a commercial landscaper, you're not bringing us all those tons of leaves. All right, not tons, all those volume of leaves, because all we got to do is we're just loading in our truck to haul it away. Guilford just shut off all the commercial landscapers from dropping it off at their place. So I'm expecting people to be knocking on our doors big time trying to solve that problem. Limited reuse soils it's existed for quite a while. DES really hasn't started beating us up hard on it. Simplest way to think of it is a certain amount of feet underneath the road that is considered to be contaminated. I have to treat it as it's contaminated soil, not necessarily hazardous, and I have to put it someplace, protect it, do all the testing of it, and determine what it has to be done to properly dispose of it. Or I can leave it in the right-of-way. It's in the right-of-way, you can go back in. All that stuff that I pull out of catch basins is considered limited reuse soils. I'm supposed to be testing it, protecting it, determine and sending it off. There's very few municipalities that are doing that right now because they haven't figured out how to do it and how to pay for it.
Now, Public Works is responsible for all of the culverts on the side of the roads, right?
For public roads, correct.
Correct.
Now, the difference is if it goes underneath your driveway, if that fails and we're not doing anything, the driveway owner is responsible for that.
And that means they have to submit their $10 fee and then have, submit a plan for a new driveway that is to your standards.
Actually,
the
all they
Public
have to do
Works
is submit,
standards.
a portion that's subject for what they're doing to replace that culvert. They don't have to redo the whole driveway, they just gotta fix the culvert. Yep. Okay, so I had to show this picture. The top one, if you look at the trim work at the bottom of the counter, you can see the difference in elevation. My office is a trip hazard, okay? So I have to step up to get into the flat space where my administrative assistant works. Then I have to step down to get into my office. Then I have to step back up to get behind my desk. That's how bad the floor is out. You don't get a good picture of it, but the floor, we have piles that were driven to hold the edge of the the building, so the edge of the building is staying where it is. And the floor is now like this, going down. So everything wants to flow towards the middle, and we've drilled holes so it has a place for the water to go. Last year, I had to put more pavement on the outside of my bay doors because the ground on the other side had sunk so low that we couldn't get into the bay. So, once we get into winter, we get construction season over with, a lot of my piece is gonna be starting to do all the analysis, working with the architects and the surveyors to figure out how much room that we need. But realistically, that's me guessing of what the council wants to do in the future, and I'm a pretty good guesser, but I'm not, it's a crystal ball. Things can change.
Where do you have an idea to place this new building?
Best place for us is someplace around the intersection of Meredith Center and Parade.
Again, the same.
Because it's got 4 roads. You put me on the south side of the city, and I gotta go up one road to get any place. One, it's a lot of wasted time. The other piece, you're gonna have a very good plowed road in the wintertime initially, because all the plows are gonna put their plow down to get, going. But the rest of the city's gonna wait a while till they can get there.
Alright.
Sanitary sewer fund, a little bit of a change this year. Costs went up drastically for what we have to pay the Winnipesaukee River Basin for the day-to-day operation of their treatment plant. Council decided to limit us to $1 million per year for the next 3 years, and all bonded. Good idea? So that's what we're gonna do with that $1 million. But we also have, now that it looks like 2034, Union Ave's gonna be done, we're gonna have a bill for about 1.56 million for that sewer line. Okay, so then we gotta start thinking that. I don't know what, I'm the chairman of the Winnipesaukee River Basin Board. I know what they keep telling me, and I know every year they keep changing things on me, so I don't know what we'll be paying in the future. Okay, fast project updates. Messer Street Bridge should be finished by the end of the month. They've got everything formed up, ready to pour the concrete for the last side. Then all they gotta do is put the membrane down and pave it. Okay. Look, price-wise, it looks like it's gonna come in a little bit closer to 800,000 because the amount of work that had to be done. How we could tell it needed, we looked up from the bottom and you could see through the concrete to the road. Okay. And then the other piece was, I don't know if anyone drove it in the springtime. There was this huge pile of asphalt in one corner. It wasn't the asphalt gave away, the concrete underneath that was the asphalt was attached to gave away, and it just shifted.
Like it melted almost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it?
Yep.
Okay. Academy Street Bridge, again, 2024, we need about 56,000 to meet our matching portion to it. Luckily, the federal funding reduced how much that we had to provide. Langley Cove Bridge, 2026. 1/3 of that cost of our share belongs to Brady Sullivan.
Thank you.
Because they need it for the turn lane. So that's approximately 180,000 they owe towards our 514. So we're in the neighborhood of about 308,000 that we have to come up with. You had a question in regards to,
Messer Street.
no, in regards to
Oh,
the sediment and everything coming out. That project will not do anything to that. That project is really just to replace the bridge. The issue is in regards to what's happening upstream of it and all the sediment that comes down, because once you have a fast-moving stream and it hits the slow spot, as soon as they hit that cove, sediment drops out.
Will the new bridge be able to handle any detritus that?
It will handle the flow coming through.
It's not gonna change the sediment.
Not gonna
flow.
change the sediment.
And so that cove right there, as you can see it, when they lower the lake, you can walk across it because it's slowly building itself up.
Even without home ownership, just virgin small ponds, virgin forest or whatever, eventually they disappear.
Yep.
Because normal sedimentation will fill it up. That's what we're seeing at that point now. It may not be, it's probably not helpful depending upon what people are doing upstream, but that project will not involve that portion.
Nothing we created.
Rebuild north end of the boardwalk. We spend about $2,000 a year placing boards in about a week and a half on it. at some point, we're gonna have to bite the bullet. And if you put Trex down or something like that, costs a lot at the beginning, but your maintenance costs are going down.
Really, you think the tracks last longer?
Yeah, we haven't done
Is it
hardly
in the-
anything to
Is it
the,
in the same thickness as
5/4,
the boards?
right,
5/4 board.
yeah. Okay.
And they can get it in
And
varying
again,
ways.
where's beach stock? That's really, we've got to decide when we're gonna do it, make that a hard and fast, and then make sure we have enough money covers any overage, and we reapply for the grant again. And probably the most critical piece is, they can only pay from the grant, it's gotta be in 6 feet of water, and the boat's gotta be 26 feet long. And we're supposed to enforce the boat piece to it.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Wes, and go back up to the boardwalk. I've heard people say, I've never checked it myself, that compost that you have down at the south end of the boardwalk, where it's been replaced, not wood, the other
Right.
stuff,
Yep.
is more slippery in the rain when it's wet than it is on the wood?
I haven't had any complaints to me on that.
Have you-
I've been up
is that-
there in
Is
rain.
that something that we know? Is it slippery, more slippery than wood or not?
I don't think so.
So
I
we
have
don't know.
one on my own, and I have to pressure wash it at time, because it's under these trees to get the, you know, the tree deciduous, or detritus off of it.
We've built, I used to sell building material, and one of the things we sold was a lot of Trex to people redoing the decks on their
Is it
decks.
anti-slip?
And they did it for that reason. Now, the only other thing, the drawback was, it does get a little hotter for if you're barefooted.
But it has, it's anti-slip? That's all I
Yes,
wanna know.
you-
I have some it's actually textured.
Yes,
I
it's
don't know if
textured.
Thank you.
Now, if you get the least expensive bottom entry-level type composite boards, then
I'm sure
you're
the city
into
doesn't
another
do that.
story. But
I'm
if
sure
you,
the city doesn't do
you
that.
know, the quality is in the price.
Thank you, Wes.
Okay. Downtown pedestrian bridge. It's now in the political, whether we get that congressionally directed spending, your guess is as good as mine.
What is the downtown pedestrian bridge?
This
That one right there.
Oh, that one
Yep,
over there, okay,
yep.
thank you.
And then, that's the last of my slides, and as a little combat engineer, I like to go out with a boom.
I wondered what that was.
That's
Is that
two-
the parking
that is-
garage?
Nope, that's
That's what I thought, a
That is
parking garage.
2,000 pounds of explosives going off that we used to clear landfills.
Okay.
Oh, very nice.
Yep. And I got too close to one going off when I was out in the desert.
No, I didn't.
You want this?
Humvee
Have
picked
to
up
wear
off
with
the
all
ground.
two,
My
below.
ears were ringing as well. Questions?
Been taking them all night.
Yep.
Did a great job.
Do we hear
The
it?
drainage at,
Yeah. Gave us those.
just past Veteran Square over there, during some of the large rain events,
Are you talking,
oh, yes.
yeah,
As you go past the library where the railroad
Oh.
tracks are,
yeah.
it's very much flooded.
Yeah, and it's going to. The problem what we have with Veteran Square, it was so flat because the buildings around it. We did our best to sort of shape the asphalt to try to improve the drainage. And then the other thing you gotta remember, if you get a big storm, we don't build for big storms.
Rob,
It's only 100,
where were you when the clinic flooded out every year?
Oh, I know
It
that.
still works here, I mean, but.
And I still don't think they solved the problem, did they? What? The clinic flooding?
I
No,
don't think
we
so.
have not.
No.
It's been a pleasure, and you know what my priorities are?
Everything.
Well, I have to meet what the residents, our customers want, and they're really talking roads and drainage and sidewalks. But to do that, there's some support structure that we need to do. To include at some point, I've got to get into a place where I don't flood out. The drainage beside me is a remains of a stream. And my culverts, whenever it fills up, whenever the drainage ditch fills up, whatever level is in the drainage ditch is the level of water that's in my parking lot.
well, Wes, if I can say, I look forward to you going to the city council then and starting to bring up on a regular basis about extra funding for sidewalk plows and more personnel for sidewalks.
Right.
Just done that yet.
just fast on that
It's
piece.
part of doing the business of the city. You
he
can't
said-
stop sidewalks and force people to continually walk in the street.
Right.
And you can't give away the sidewalks so that the developers don't have to do anything.
Right.
And eventually, they will all line up if we remain steadfast in that ability.
We are now.
Is it possible when these developers who are required to put these sidewalks in to be responsible in the same ADA manner?
That's
Is
a good
it-
question.
What?
Right, if they have to put the sidewalk in, can they be responsible for maintenance?
They have to be, they should be responsible for the
They have to
ADA.
meet, they have to meet ADA standards.
And I don't know, has that been done?
What?
Any sidewalks that have been put in by developers?
I've got one I'm working on right now that didn't, and I've got to go up there and mark it for him to say, you got to redo.
Okay, because I looked to our planning director over there, and I don't recall in my years on the planning board when we've had you can, Rob, where we've had sidewalks put in, that was specifically mentioned about the sidewalks being ADA. I don't recall it ever being mentioned.
I don't think we've ever had a condition of approval that specifically spells out.
But you say if
but-
it meets city specs puts in there
There
must
you
meet ADA.
Okay.
Yep.
Good enough.
And
But I'll-
if there is some way to shift the responsibility and maintenance upon the developer,
That I
because
don't
we
know.
asked
If it's
them
a-
to
if-
make it,
If it's a private road,
yeah.
it's the private association's responsibility. If it's a public road, it's the city's responsibility.
Yeah.
Once they turn it over and once it becomes a public road, it's our responsibility.
Yeah, same with sidewalks.
Well, I think we're gonna have a discussion for sidewalks at
We had,
upcoming planning board meetings.
we had one already.
Yeah.
We had one presentation, and I'm ready to answer questions at the next. But my answer, as I made the recommendation, for those who are on the planning board, we gotta stop building the sidewalks that don't connect to another sidewalk. Doesn't mean you can't ask the developer to pay up money for it, and then we can start marching, use that money to connect the next sidewalk and make it further.
I would just point out the incident we had in the Weirs some years back, and I'm going to throw down 15 years on it, on the bike week in which there was not enough lighting between maybe like the Weirs Times and on the east side of the road, and a woman got hit. And they held the city liable
That was
for,
a drunk, excuse me, that was a drunk that careened across the road after hitting another vehicle.
it was a pedestrian in my.
That's right, but it was a drunk on a vehicle, in a motorcycle, that hit a car, or pickup truck actually, and then I was part of that lawsuit, and then veered across and hit two pedestrians.
Correct.
The basic standard for
It was
a
alcohol.
properly done crosswalk right now is you have to have a street light within so many feet on either side
Right.
of it. Not, in other words, it's in the direction that someone's traveling. So if you're going this way, there should be a street light there that lights up the side of the pedestrian. On the opposite side, of course, it lights up the side of the pedestrians, that traffic's coming this way.
Let's crosswalk and more sidewalk in this discussion. It was along the edge, I didn't recognize that they were crossing the road, but I don't know everything, so.
Yeah, and,
I'm
Come on,
easy.
Mike, come on.
yes.
On Spring Street, that was just, what, the water line was just redone and it was just repaved. Is there a reason why we didn't put granite curbing in there? We did asphalt curbing?
Money.
Yep, that's what it comes down to.
You know, they did that asphalt thing on Spruce Street the last time they paved it on the one side because the water ran down and
Yeah.
it was going into people's driveways and stuff. And it works well. I mean, on some of them, they put a little asphalt bump at the end and the water's been all directed down. It works
Just doesn't
great.
last as long as granite.
And I just don't think it looks aesthetically pleasing.
Well, true.
I think
But
we
neither
look,
do
we
we.
look cheap as can be. Well, I just think that, we put granite on certain roads and then other roads we for you.
If we do a full reconstruction, most of the time we'll try to do granite. Sometimes we can't afford it, or if it's such a low volume street, we will go with curb. I mean, asphalt curb.
Did they ever, when I bring my leaves not to Laconia but to Guilford, and I see a large pile of curbing there, is there any recycle program that goes to curbing?
We keep all the curbing for using, not as curbing necessarily, but for, head walls, retaining walls and such. The challenge is there's two different types. The old type is what they call beasts, and there's some other terms. That's not standard. It's standard up top and it gets real big and heavy. The contractors, they won't even reinstall that stuff anymore. It's too
'Cause
expensive.
it's not square.
Oh, they get too many injuries from it. They won't deal with the old stuff because it takes too much manpower to do it around. So they install the new stuff, which is more machined with all the high tech, which is cut right, it's deep, it's square, it's lighter, and they can put it in. Try to get somebody to put in the old stuff after you pulled it out. You're not gonna find many
Or
contractors.
reconditioned,
Yeah.
what I was thinking, reconditioned. All right.
Thank you, Wes.
You sure have a nice presentation.
All right. Other business before the board. Kathy, do you have anything?
I will not be here at the next meeting, Mr. Chair. I will be in Florida working. However, I'd asked about being on Zoom, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm just, because I watched your first meeting on YouTube and that was fine. I don't, any questions I have, I can bring up at a later date for the applicants. It's not a problem. I just wanted to let you know I will not be here because of work. But I will watch the meeting and watch all of your performances and keep good notes. That's it.
Thank you, Charlie.
And I just had one question. So one of the criteria on here is does it meet the goals and objectives of the master plan? Where do we find the master plan?
I believe there's a link on the city's website to it.
Okay.
Kathy might be able to email that out.
I think, yeah, I'll do that. I'll send the link out.
And is it still my understanding that the master plan is a fully evolving document that's been placed before us before, because we asked for the update because it's supposed to be there every 10 years.
It was last updated in 2018. I think it was just a partial update, though.
So in it, I hear that in the last iteration of our planning department that it was constantly developing, but I think it's still an important document to pay attention to, and if it's going to be continually updated, then we should.
I watched that fantasy a couple times. It works well.
Oh, good. I'll enjoy it.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything else before, all right, move on, motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Oh, you guys are quick.
So move.
Yay.
Hey, vote, yay?
And I'll have to bring my own coffee next week.
What's that? Oh, yeah. I won't be here.
You could have it sent to him, they deliver.
I could, but,
He doesn't think you're worth it. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm not worthy.
Fireworks. Yes. Professional.